All right, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Greg Show. Being a truth teller, kind of getting to the bottom of what's going on for you, giving you some insight, giving you some tips and tricks. As always, it's a joy to spend a little bit of time with you here today. Last week, we talked about that weight around the middle and what's going on with that. One thing that I always want to remind my listeners of is, number one, the body responds appropriately to its environment. So you're not broken, you're not damaged, you are definitely being impacted and suffering. I'm not trying to discount that, though the point of it is if we are curious and we can look closely, then I think we can find that. In today's episode, I want to talk about a patient I had last week. Came into the clinic here. So we treat people both in our clinic and then virtually around the United States. And she said, Dr. Greg, I feel so lazy. Dude, come 3 o'clock every day, I am just tapped. Like, I've got nothing. And she was actually like apologizing for this. She's like, I'm sorry. Like, I literally, I can't make this up. This is just what's going on inside of my body. And she needed someone to hold space for her. She needed someone to like understand and hear her, but then also get curious with her about, well, why could that be? What's going on inside of your system? As always, we love questions from our listeners. If you have questions, go ahead and throw them in the comments or reach out to my team. In the show notes, there's ways to do that. Also, we've got a new book coming out, or depending upon when you're watching this, we've got a book called Power Over Perimenopause. Hey, it's the exact game plan of how we, in our clinic with our one-on-one patients, how we actually work with the body. Spoiler alert, it's not just, hey, here's your hormone stack, start taking a bunch of these things. So I just want you to understand that it's not just like my theory, my philosophy is it's a lot more than just filling hormones. Now, is there hormone deficiencies? Potentially. The catch though is even if you have the right amount of hormones, we know that your body, those things can be sabotaged. So going back to my patient, Dr. Greg, 3 o'clock, bro, like caffeine, like is my friend. But she's just like, she literally was like blaming herself for it. And first off, I just had the chance to hold some space for her. Like, hey, you're okay. Like I get this. You need to do what you need to do to get through the day. She had gone to another clinician and her labs came back normal. And you're gonna hear me talk a lot about this in past episodes and in upcoming episodes. Normal isn't optimal. And we cannot, respectfully, we need to stop looking at labs in silos, right? Like these are your heart labs, these are your liver labs, this is your gut, this is your sex hormones, this is your thyroid hormones. We have to take 3 steps back and start looking at them globally. How can all of these things be intertwined? And if there is truly a root cause or root causes, where do we get through that? So to give you a basis, let me start talking about what should happen to your energy throughout the day. So there's a hormone called cortisol, and there's lots of ways to test for cortisol. Respectfully, the gold standard is a multi-point, several times throughout the day, salivary cortisol sample. So like right when you get up, 30 minutes after you get up is a very, very important sample. I'll talk about that. And then multiple times throughout the day, because after you wake up, so 30 minutes after you wake up, cortisol should spike about 50 to 160%, and closer to the higher side is best. That's called a cortical awakening response, or CAR for short. What that tells us is that the body said, hey, like I'm good, my nervous system is good, I've got reserves of cortisol to come up. But it also says that I'm coming out of sleep where cortisol has been lower. I've been in that deep and that REM and restorative sleep. So I now have the ability, because it's that time of the day, to bring that cortisol up. And then over the course of the day, think of like a bell, the shape of a bell, like a bell curve. It should fall off so that when it's time for bed, cortisol should be super low so that your body's like, ready for bed. And then this is a different conversation, but many women have a rise of cortisol at night. We call that tired but wired. So anyway, the other thing is perimenopause, fantastic, can increase the instability of cortisol. So This is a 2019 study in psychoneuroendocrinology, there's a mouthful of a word, found that women in perimenopause experience greater cortisol variability and more pronounced afternoon dips. You're like, thank you, study. I could have written that one for you without you spending a bunch of money, right? Another study in menopause showed that fluctuating estrogen directly impacts mitochondrial energy production, contributing to afternoon fatigue. So now we're talking about estrogen, which is that typically first half of the cycle dominant hormone. It's more of the gas pedal. And what we are finding and continue to find with women in perimenopause is there can be times of the month where they have a lot of estrogen, and there's times of the month where they can have low estrogen. So estrogen can really feel like it's on this like roller coaster throughout this. So what are the three biggest root causes of that 3 p.m. crash? And we're going to give you some tips along the way too, so don't just think that you're going to feel helpless through this conversation. So number one, you wake up drained, right? So you don't even have those reserves to have that morning cortisol spike rather. So there could be like, and when we run proper cortisol testing, some people have literally not the inability to produce cortisol, because that's things like Addison's disease and other autoimmune diseases, but they've literally like it's like barely like an eighth of a tank of gas in the tank. They've burnt through a lot of cortisol in their system, so they don't even have the reserves to do that. So if you start low and it's supposed to come off over the day, then by 3 o'clock, if you start low, you're just gonna be low throughout the day. So what are the things that can do that? So why this happens? Chronic stress, hormones swings, poor sleep, and under eating is one of those things that I've seen for a lot of women as well. Now, the other thing I want to talk about, actually, I'm teaching a class to a bunch of doctors here next week. There's profound research now that shows that underlying chronic infection or chronic toxicity can literally sabotage your stress hormones, your sex hormones, your thyroid hormones. So then we have to think of things like, is there a bacterial load, a fungal load, a parasitic load, mycotoxins, heavy metals? These are absolutely profound contributors to this analogy. So the idea of sleep is it like charges your batteries, right? So if you wake up and your battery didn't charge, it's pretty tough for it to get you throughout the day. Okay, second one here, blood sugar instability. So what I've seen, because I run what's called a fasting insulin test, by the way, and respectfully, fasting insulin should be between 2 and 5 on a lab. That's an appropriate fasting insulin. So it's above that, then there's the propensity, and there's other factors to look at for something called insulin resistance. Insulin is a hormone. Estrogen plays a big role in insulin sensitivity. Also, not enough protein early in the day. We'll talk about this. So a lot of times we get big glucose spikes in the morning because a lot of people crush the carbs, and nothing against carbs. There's a time and place for carbs, but they spike glucose, right? Which then, if you have this blood sugar instability, you have this huge spike, and then blood sugar and insulin, cortisol can follow. So what I really want to say to this point is that 3 p.m. crash isn't about willpower. It's really your body saying, hey, I need some metabolic strategy here. How can we put the right fuel at the right time to balance some of these other areas? So, and then you heard me talk about mitochondria a little bit ago, and how mitochondria, by the way, the mitochondria has a big role inside of your thyroid gland. So just coming back again, I'm sure I've said this, and I'm going to say it again. All of your sex and stress hormones start with cholesterol, and then they actually have to go through the thyroid, and this is a very mitochondrial dependent pathway. So it goes through your thyroid, and then it lands at something called pregnenolone. We call it the mother hormone. Pregnenolone optimally would either go over to progesterone or down to DHEA. However, if your body's like, hey, I need more cortisol, or I don't have enough, then it'll actually do something called pregnenolone steal, and it'll pull it over to cortisol, and then you are all gas and no brake, as nice as I can possibly say that. And then hidden inflammation, right? We talked about underlying infection and toxicity can play a huge role inside of this. So 2020 research in cell metabolism showed that mitochondrial efficiency declines significantly in states of chronic inflammation, leading to fatigue. So this is why the normal labs don't tell the whole story, right? This is why fatigue isn't a lab number, it's a pattern, and you have to correlate it with multiple symptoms. Okay, so many people, if this is you, you've been told, just get more sleep, like you're not sleeping enough, or exercise more. I mean, I had a woman last week, she's like, dude, I get 10 hours a night of sleep, and I'm like, whew, good for you. But she's like, it's not restorative. Like something's going on in my system that is not charging my batteries. So here's the truth. If your cortisol curve is not optimal, it could be flipped, it could spike at the wrong times, it may not spike at the right times. If your blood sugar is crashing, if there's chronic inflammation, chronic infection, toxicity, it just literally drains your batteries. So again, eating right, exercising more, sleeping more. So if this again feels like you and you're like, oh my gosh, like, so hopefully number one, you're like, this makes sense because I've tried all the things. I've even tried some of the supplements or things that are out there and they just don't seem to do it. Like that's, hopefully you are having some peace of mind here. So let's talk about some strategy, practical tools. Number one, 20 to 30 grams of protein within the first hour of getting up. I like that good sustenance with a little bit of healthy fat. It's going to stabilize that morning glucose, and your body's like, all right, we got some wood in the furnace. Like this is good. Like I can steady Eddie walk through this particular thing. The sun, 2 minute light reset. Looking into the sun, not directly in it, but what it does when your eyes see the sun, it stimulates something called your pineal gland, and there's a natural cortical rhythm component that goes through that. Move for 3 minutes every 90 minutes. So set a timer if you're at your desk or if you're rocking out at work. Just set a timer for every 90 minutes and get up. Go for a 3 to 5 minute walk. Move your body. The body is designed for movement. Your lymphatic system, your GI system, your brain, blood flow, super important. Hydration and minerals. Most women in perimenopause are dehydrated. When I run kidney panels, it's so common for me to see like markers of dehydration. So now we don't need to go into the weeds of like, what's the best water? What's the best filtration system? Start by drinking filtered water of some fashion, but and shoot for like half your body weight in ounces, right? So if you weigh 150 pounds, 75 ounces is your benchmark. Now, if you're working out or going into a sauna and you're sweating, you do definitely need to have more water. Minerals, you don't have to get fancy with this. Good quality, like mineral salts can be helpful, like just even put it on your food. And then there's things like, I'm a fan of a product called Relight. It's from a company called Redmond Real Salt. We can put a link in the show notes. Like these little flavored mineral packets. Our kids are athletes, so we use these a lot with rehydration, with athletics. And then I think it's important to identify, like, is it always 2 p.m. or is it 4 p.m. or like what am I? Is it so long after I eat, or is it I sit for 2 hours after lunch? Like, start to create some patterns and do some pattern interrupts, right? If you know that 2 hours after lunch, it's like clockwork, boom, then what I would do is I would set like an hour timer. So like if you have lunch at noon, I get up at 1, at 2, at 3, 5-minute brisk walk, maybe a couple air squats would be right where it needs. What I'm trying to say in this episode is what your body's doing is explainable, almost always, right? Once you understand the why, you can change and figure out the what now, which is always an interesting component. So next week, we're going to dive deeper, because women with a 3 p.m. crash a lot of times also feel puffy, swollen, and inflamed. And that's another clue your body is giving you. Key takeaways. Here's your cheat sheet. Afternoon fatigue has a pattern and a cause. Cortisol instability, blood sugar swings, chronic infection, chronic toxicity, and mitochondrial slowdown are the top culprits. Perimenopause puts a magnifying glass on these. Small shifts in your morning routine can dramatically change afternoon energy, and fatigue is not a personal failure, ladies. It's your physiology speaking. Some things to do. So in our show notes, our team, we've created a free hormonal symptom tracker. And here's why. So I went back to college last year, got a postdoctorate degree in hormones from World Link Medical, one of the most amazing educational experiences I've ever had. And the common question was, what's the right lab for the thyroid or estrogen or progesterone, testosterone? And the guy's like, yeah, we can talk about lab values, but you need to start talking to your patients, right? He's like, you need to start understanding the symptomatology of what a non-optimal hormone function could look like. And you also need to understand that if it's a low progesterone symptom, the answer is not necessarily more progesterone. Now, it makes sense. It's logarithmic, it's logical, right? But why? What could be sabotaging that amount of progesterone that you maybe are already taking? So that's where we have to peel the layers back and look a little bit different. So again, submit questions. If you pre-order our book, we have a pile of really good pre-order benefits, from I'm doing live Q&As to we did a hormone masterclass. There's some handouts inside of there. If you would feel so inclined, we'd love for you to support us. There's a link to get our book in the show notes as well. So that is it for episode 12. Stay tuned for our next episode. Take care and have a great day. God bless you.